a little bit about their childhood. What can you tell me about your growing up years? Where did you grow up, and what was your neighborhood like?
Well, my family community, Stones Cove on the South Coast, resettled in '66. My parents had moved out prior to me being born, so I was born in St. John's. But when Stones Cove and Anderson's Cove were resettled, like both our grandmothers moved in with us, all our relatives are from the South Coast. So you could call, I grew up in town on, Cherry Hill Road by New Cove Road behind George G.R. Parsons, for people who remember. But I was completely surrounded by Fortune Bay. People from Fortune Bay were a big part of my life, and Fortune Bay still rings through in our family. My oldest son is a history major, and that's his main area of focus. So, and we go back and forth. But East End,
Mm-hmm. So, when and how did you become interested in filmmaking?
Well, it started in still photography, and it was in grade 3. My teacher was Mrs. Brown, and there was a reader we had where this mystery is solved by kids taking pictures, and then when they develop it, they find the missing locket and stuff. And so I decided right then and there I wanted a darkroom, and so my parents just said no. Because I wanted everything. Anyway, so I eventually got a darkroom. I was in grade 4 by the time I got it, and it stuck with me. So I was taking pictures and developing prints and stuff. So then, after 2 or 3 years, it evolved into a bigger darkroom in the basement of my house, and an enlarger, and doing all of that stuff. So it just kind of stuck with me. And then at the same time, my brother David, who is 8 years older than me, he and his friends were making short films in a little group they called Soul Brothers. And my brother went on to become the first, it was him and Mike Jones and a few others that established the Newfoundland Independent Filmmakers Cooperative in 1975. And so I went off to Ryerson to study photography and ultimately film in 1976. And it was between 76 and 80, NIFCO kind of became established, and that was what attracted me back. But, so it was, and then my brother passed away in '88, but I continue.
So when you were at university, you came away with a film degree, or what was it?
I got a Bachelor of Applied Arts in Film and Photography from, at the time, Ryerson Polytechnical Institute, which is now Bachelor of Fine Arts from Ryerson University. And whatever they might rename it now, who knows?
Yes, that's right. They're in the process of coming up with a new name. But is that where you made your first movie?
The first, well, so NIFCO was and is a cooperative, and it was very heady times in '75 and '76 in the early part, because nobody could make movies on their phones. Filmmaking was a really rarefied, expensive kind of art form, and that's how the co-op got together, because no one could afford to buy the gear themselves, but if we all worked together and did it, so it was really exciting, and we all worked on each other's films. So I made my own first film, would be a short film, in 1977, but I worked on my first film in '75 and '76 with my brother. And the story I like to tell is the actor that I have worked with the longest is Mary Walsh. My first show on set, my first film with her was, I think, 1976 or 1977. And I think we've worked together every year, or almost every year since, on something. We cross paths.
So you never got into documentaries or anything outside of the realm of, dramatic films, comedies?
Oh,
that sort of thing?
no, we made, basically, I like working, film production is a group art form. You know, like it takes a group of people to make it. So I've made a number of documentaries, the most successful being My Left Breast with Jerry Rogers. It's her film.
Oh.
I produced it with her. And I made a couple of documentary, I made a bunch of documentaries, but my heart is in drama. Like that's where I gravitated towards.
What can you tell me about the history of filmmaking in Newfoundland and Labrador? And I know you were probably a babe in arms in the 1950s, but when I was growing up, I remember the only movies that seemed to be made here were Lee Wolf fly fishing films and tourism movies narrated by O.L. Vardy or Don Jameson.
Yeah, Newfoundland on the March. Well, it was kind of interesting because Smallwood, our first premier in Confederation, he certainly understood media. So there was in the 50s, there was Atlantic Films, and some may remember it as a store, but they also had a pretty elaborate production facility, and it was in a purpose-built building in what is now the Blue Drop parking lot at Prescott and Duckworth.
Right.
And they had a recording studio, they had a mixing studio, they had editing rooms, and they produced Lee Wolf. I'm sorry, no, it was. I'm gonna fool up his name, but it was a Latvian guy they brought over, not Velmanis, but I'll be shot for this, but I forget his name. But they brought over it was a pretty elaborate film production operation.
I think Ralph Pilotis worked with them.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Point.
But
yeah.
then also in the 70s, Memorial University Extension Services partnered with the National Film Board to create the Extension Services Film Unit, and it was the thing on the go when I started in the business, and we had an educational
Squires
TV channel.
was involved with them as well. Yeah,
we had an educational TV channel, Channel 13. We made
That's right.
Decks Awash with NTV that was on equivalent to Land and Sea.
Exactly.
And there was like a ton of material, and then at the same time, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation was on steroids. There were like three big shows being done. The Wonderful Grand Band, Root Cellar, the Pigeon Inlets, the tons of talk shows. I mean, you were around for a bit of that too, right?
Yes,
It was an amazing production facility. So you had like the National Film Board had a presence in Newfoundland. There was the CBC on wheels, just like crazy amount of production. There was the film board, the Educational Film Unit at Memorial, which was up on Ridge Road, and so for us, they were the establishment. They were the establishment, and the films that there was also another boom coming on in the 70s and 80s of independent filmmaking, film art, film as political positions and stuff. There was a bunch of different films. And so NIFCO kind of grew out of that. So we were seen as, there was a quote, there was someone at the CBC you would remember, I won't mention, who described us as a bunch of pot-smoking hippies on welfare. And I can tell you, we're not on welfare anymore. The CBC became our best partner over the next 20 years and remain, one of our best partners in terms of, buying what we do, partnering with us. A sister company is doing Son of a Critch. I've done tons of stuff with the CBC, so it's all worked out.
Yeah. I'm wondering what effect having, Hollywood companies come here to do movies had on the industry. The people that came here to make A Whale for the Killing and Orca, for example. Did that have an effect on us locally?
Not much, no.
But I'm assuming they must have hired some local crew people.
No, I mean, drivers, there were no crew.
No.
There were no crew. Like, if you go through it, the bulk of the production in Newfoundland and Labrador has been created by us and produced by us. There's been, it's been about this place. Like that's the bulk of it. The big American shows, they'll come and go where they want, and they're great. Don't get me wrong, but you know, they're not to be counted on. Gordon Pinson shot 3 films here, which I think The Rowdy Man, John and the Missus, and Heyday, which I had the pleasure of producing with him. And I think Gordon's contribution had more significance because Gordon was able to find people to work with. He had a more vested interest in, like he called me to produce his 3rd film, Heyday, with him. And we had a ball, you know, so you know, I think that's important.
How many of those were theatrical releases, or?
They were all theatrical releases.
Oh, okay.
Heyday was a CBC Sunday night special movie, so I'm not sure. By that time, the theatrical release market had changed alterly, which has drastically changed and will never be what it was before.
How many different jobs have you yourself done in the business? I kind of picture you like being somebody who's done basically all of the jobs.
Well, so that's an interesting question because like what I tell people is that whether you're doing something very large like Hudson and Rex, where we have almost 200 people working for us and there's 100 people on the floor all the time, or whether you're doing a really short independent film with 5 people, the same jobs have to be done. You just don't know you're doing them. Like you're doing locations, you're doing craft services because you brought the food, you're talking to the extras, or you're the background performer for them, you're the production manager. Like, so all the jobs have to be done anyway. It's just as the project gets bigger, there's more to do, so more people have to do it. So yeah, there was a time at NIFCO where I knew how every piece of equipment worked and I could operate every piece of equipment. And today, I need help to use the intercom. It has gotten so sophisticated.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a good thing.
That's what I was going to ask you about too, was you know, how technology has changed over the years, because now we have, you know, CGI and all of this software and different kinds of computer applications and so forth. It must have had an amazing impact on your industry.
Yeah, I can answer that in 2 ways. First of all, nothing has changed. The audience wants a good story well told, and that will always separate the successful from the unsuccessful. A good story well told, that's what the audience wants. So that has not changed, not since the first wind-up cameras, since the very, very first. But what has changed is the democratization of the process. Like, you can, with your phone, make a hit project if you know how to tell a good story. Like, the technology is so affordable and the market has so many options. The gatekeepers are gone. The shelf space is an old term. We were always limited by, to get a show on a TV network, you had to wait for another show to be canceled. There was only so much shelf space, so much time space.
That's right. Yeah.
That's gone. There is unlimited shelf space. You know, unlimited shelf space now. So
just talk about that, because you're right. I mean, with streaming now, there's Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, all of these different.
Don't even bother them. Those are still. They're the OTT, over the top people we call, that are unregulated, and that whole deal. Yeah, they're still a big industry. They got their own gatekeepers. Like, you need agents, you need people to get in. Like, it's very difficult to you know, to just phone these guys up. But there's nothing stopping you from making something fantastic, putting it up on YouTube, and having a huge audience. Now, it's hard, okay, but it's not impossible, and it's happening. So I think that's the most exciting thing. I liken it to the word processor, the early word processors. You know, it made it a lot easy to write a book. Yeah. And I think the whole publishing, modernization of the publishing area, you know, got us a lot of books. But you only hear about the ones that are a good story, well told.
Is conventional television dead, or just now another platform?
Okay, so conventional television is not dead. Hudson and Rex is what you would refer to as conventional television, and the audience will the conventional television is under more pressure to make sure that they have really strong stories and really good stories, because the audience is agnostic. They don't care if you're conventional television. They don't care what you are. I mean, we get, in our audience for Hudson and Rex, we have our live viewing, what we call our on the night. But I mean, we do a lot of viewing through the platforms of the broadcaster all during the week and forever. So, and people can binge watch and go back and catch up and stuff. So the conventional broadcasters have been very nimble.
Yeah, well, they all have apps now. For instance, I watch Hudson and Rex on the City TV app.
And then you
on my television.
And then you got Apple TV, which is releasing Ted Lasso or The Morning Show once a week on Friday nights. They release them on Friday nights. So hey, doesn't that look a bit like conventional television? And then you got other models where you just dump the whole load of it. So we're at a high water mark in the amount of content being created.
Yeah.
Is there an end to that? Obviously, but I don't see it coming anytime soon.
Well, there just seems to be a huge appetite, and I suppose it increased somewhat with the pandemic, don't you think?
Now that's interesting, because we study our numbers. We study our numbers on Hudson and Rex, and we look at it through a number of ways. And there was some uptick in television viewing, not as much as you would think. In terms of, I'm only concerned with conventional television. I can't speak to what people are doing on Netflix and the platforms that I don't have data for. But there has been an uptick in television viewing. It has not been shared equally. Some shows have gone up, others have gone down. But it's not, from my analysis, and again, only with limited data, it's...
I imagine movie theaters must have been hurt, though.
Oh, movie theaters are decimated, but for many reasons. To begin with, the ability for the audience to see your films, and people have theaters in their homes that are really good. The movie audience decline has been pretty regular for the last number of years, and the model now is very, very big, what they call tent poles, like big budget special effects blockbusters, where the big screen, big audience viewing, and the movie audience is a younger audience. So, and the younger audience is declining. We are an aging population.
Tell me about your operation at Pulp Productions, your physical plant. I mean, do you have your own editing rooms and studios and that sort of thing?
So Pulp Productions has an office on Duckworth Street. It's very small. And Pulp Productions is the holding company and the development company for the projects we do. So Hudson and Rex is produced by Pulp Rex Season 4. And we occupy, we have 2 studios in Donovan's. We have a large office building, and we have our own props and sets storage, probably the size of Value Village, with probably as much stock in it from 3 seasons in a building, which is what we call our sets lockup.
So your set.
Our edit room is at NIFCO. We rent everything. The model is you rent and work with suppliers. We don't own big infrastructure.
So I assume at some point when Hudson and Rex ends, you will turn your studio or the building over to somebody else. Somebody else rent the building. Is that the way you operate?
So basically, our intention would be is to have another show ready to start.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the life cycle. Like, you need stuff in development, you need stuff in production, and you need stuff out in the market.
Are there places, I know there's some kind of facility in Halifax, but are there places that have like a studio complex which is used by all of the stakeholders.
Yes, Montreal and Toronto and Vancouver are the only ones with serious studio complexes. But a studio, people misunderstand what a studio is. Like, a studio is primarily a warehouse that you adjust for what your show needs. If you're doing big special effects and a lot of huge sci-fi sets, then a more traditional film studio is required, where you have the 150,000 square feet, 24-foot ceilings, and no posted beams. But those are expensive, and we like to right-size our studios based on what the project needs. And for Hudson and Rex, we have Studio A contains the full police station, contains Johnny's apartment, contains our hospital set, contains one of our some of our smaller sets. Those are what we call standing sets. They'll be there forever. And then our Studio B has what we call swing sets. There's a swing set for like the bar, big meeting rooms or whatever. And there's another swing set which is like for interior houses, bedrooms, you know, that kind of a deal that we just keep flipping around. And those are warehouse spaces in Donovan's, and they work really well for us. But we just modify them to what we have. There is no merit in overspending on your studio.
No. Is there a story that you've wanted to get off the ground for a long time, but just haven't been able to do it?
I would say it's the Fisheries Protective Union and the Coker story, because 1, 2, 3, 3 times. Because the first try was back in the 80s with Francine Fleming, who wrote a fantastic set of scripts about To Each His Own. And at that particular time, Coker just wasn't seen as big enough. Like, his phenomenal achievements weren't seen as national. And also, like, you know, I believe Netflix and the streaming services really softened up the audience to want to see stories about Shetland, about different small places. You know, like the previous idea that everything was set in New York or LA, and we were doubling Toronto as New York and doing all of that. Like, the audience is way more sophisticated, and Hudson and Rex is an example. I mean, we do 7 million viewers a week in Europe. If France is our biggest market, we're doing 2.5 million viewers every Sunday night in France. We have a 13% market share. It's unheard of. You know, so, and that's firmly set in Newfoundland, firmly set in St. John's, and you know, like, it's seen as a positive thing. Back in those days, it wasn't. You know, about this socialist first union town, because what Coker did was amazing. And then 10 years after that, we dusted it off and tried it again. And then most recently would have been about 4 years that we dusted it off. And so, well, you know, 5 years we'll try again. And the other project that we bring up because basically you can get a no this year and the market changes and there's an interest in it. And so we have a script about the Bulgarian defections at Gander back in the 80s called Hole in the Wall, which we've tried a few times to get interest in. So, you know, that's...
You've attracted some fairly big-name actors to your projects in the past. What is it that brings these people here? Is it the script, the pitch, the money? What is it? Why do they want to work with you?
I think it's all of the above. But the most difficult thing is getting them to read what you have. And that is probably the most important job I have as a producer. That they're not going to read or entertain. You're not going to get it through their agents. You're not going to get it in front of them if the project has no chance to be made, or if it's not an entry-level activity. That's a set of relationships that I have and people I partner with have, and, you know, to get to get the script in front of them, to give them the confidence that it will be well made, and to give them the confidence that it will be, properly marketed. I mean, it was crazy. Rare Birds was the first one. We were going out to very large actors, and it was in my office on Water Street. I had a fax machine. It was me and one other person, and I was typing up official-looking offers and putting them on the fax machine and going out. And on the phone talking to agents and stuff, and it was we had European talent and LA talent. So I'm right in the middle in the time zone. So my phone was, I kept my ringer by my bed, and it would ring at like if it was LA, it could be, if it was Europe, it could be really early in the morning. So I just had this gag of like 15 seconds to wake up before I answered the phone, so I could pretend I was working. And then late at night, the other cycle you're chasing through. So it's a bit easier now. I have more people to help me, but that's how you. But it'll come back to the script. If they read the script and they don't like it, and they stop reading as soon as they don't like it, like they're not holding out to see if it gets better at the end. Like they read until they don't like it. So it better be good from page 1 and every page that follows.
Paul, thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it. Nice seeing you again.
Nice seeing you, Karl. Thank you very much.
And that's it for this edition of Karl Wells Point to Point. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time.
If you want convenience, Marie's Mini Mart is here for you. A one-stop shop